My name is Trevor Peterson, and I am the owner of Third Day Woodworks. We've been in business for a little over a year now, and one of my main goals when I started was that I wanted to showcase our work in a video format. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to go through start to finish the process and some of the things that happened along the way on one of our most recent projects. So before I begin the story, I'd just like to send a huge shout out to the customers of this project who not only have supported me in this new business venture, but have also shown tremendous support in my previous career as a law enforcement officer. So one of the things at the beginning of every project is sourcing out the lumber. You can see in this photo the two cedar beams on the right. I located those on Facebook Marketplace. While meeting with the seller, he advised that he had some much older beams that he acquired years ago, but never really had a use for them. We negotiated a price on all the beams. So this is a photo of the material back in my shop. I took a photo of it and sent it to the customer, and the customer gave the green light to proceed with that material. So we got right after it. We began the milling process, and using this Felder planer has just been amazing. Not only with the speed and efficiency of planing and joining, but also just the quality finish where it really cuts down on the sanding. As you can see, once the outer layers were removed from this lumber, it truly revealed how beautiful the grain pattern was. Nice and clear. There were knots in the other pieces, but just really cool grain characteristics for this Douglas fir. And as all the lumber was milled up, we laid it out and got the correct orientation for the tabletop, and we took this photo. This photo is my younger brother, Sean, who is not a small man, but this table definitely makes him look small. The customer specified they wanted a 10-foot table, so that's what they are going to get. And this was a very large table, and we started referring to it as Big Texas or Texas throughout the build. This is a time-lapse video of the glue up of the tabletop. It was biscuited together and glued up. I was a little worried during this process because this glue was setting up a little quicker than I anticipated, and we were really hustling to get this thing together and clamped up properly. And it was at this point that I realized I was in very much need of a lot more clamps if I was going to continue to do these big projects or have multiple projects going. So after glue up, we removed the clamps. I used my slab flattening jig to router out some channels for C-channels to go in. C-channels are used to keep big tables from twisting, warping, and moving that much, although they are slotted and designed for a little wood movement. What's really unique about these C-channels is, I could go online and purchase them, but I went to North 40 Steel, which is located in Spooner, Wisconsin. I spoke with the guys there, and they ended up fabricating these and slotting the holes. I gave them dimensions, and they really delivered on this because not only do I like to shop local, but to have it done the right way, it was just really an asset to have them part of this build. So the way that these C-channels are mounted to the underside of the table are by the use of threaded inserts. So you drill down like you can see, and then you thread in the inserts, and the bolts go through the C-channel and into the threaded inserts. Really kind of a sleek way and a secure way to fasten the C-channels to the underside of the table. A very cool addition to my shop is this custom dust extraction hood fabricated by North 40 Steel. After hours and hours of sanding, it's very, very nice to have this type of system in place. Did I mention sanding? Yeah, we did a lot of sanding on this table. So much so that sometimes it was hard to stay awake. But all the time spent during this process really pays dividends at the end. So this is where things kind of took a turn. I've never used grain filler before. However, on this project, I wanted to create a little shadowing on the top with a darker tint. So I used black grain filler, and what ended up happening is the grain filler settled into the low areas, and when we sanded the top, this pattern started emerging. Some people thought it was really cool, some people not. We brought the customer in, and I could tell that she wasn't all about it. And we decided to go a different route with it. And so what we ended up doing is sanding it all off and starting over. So you can see in this photo how we've used CA glue and black epoxy to fill in any of the knots, checks, and cracks in our best attempt to stabilize them. And we're onto the frame. The customer had texted me a photo of an X style frame, and I knew I had the perfect material for that. These beams I received from a previous customer. They're hand hewn 6x6s. You can actually see the axe marks in the lumber when they shaped it into a 6x6. Very cool material. Throughout this process, I came around little bits of chunks of newspaper that were still adhered to the lumber. Back in the day, they used to use newspaper as insulation, so I thought that was very cool. And so we began to work on the design for the frame. So the first thing I did is I cut up a couple 2x6s. I figured out the angles for the top and bottom and approximate height of the tabletop and used those as templates to cut the beams. I had just enough. In fact, I think I had a little over 8 to 10 inches left of the beam when I completed the entire project. So there was no room for screw up at all. I can tell you that I kind of felt the pressure on this one to make sure that every cut, every angle was right. And at the end of it, we came out on top and we had a little bit left to spare for material. So in this photo is of the top right after stain and prior to spraying. I noticed 3 spots on the one end. You can't really see it in the photo as well, but there was 3 spots that developed that I believe from over sanding and taking more of the green filler out than in other areas of the table. I had a real problem with this area just because of what I wanted this table to be, and I knew that it wasn't going to reach that level with those spots in there. So hindsight, I should have started over at that point and corrected the problem, but we tried different methods of fading it in and trying to remove that area or blend it in with the rest of the table. However, I continued, got it to a point where it was okay, but I was still not okay with it. Again, I should have started over, but I did spray it. The lighting in my shop isn't the best, so it looked okay in the shop. So this is the table after it had been sprayed. We mocked up the X frame to see how it would look. It turned out really good. I really liked the design of it. However, I felt like we needed to dress up the middle of that X a little more. So I went to the fellas at North 40 Steel, and they came up with this cool design pattern that we could place over the X, and then we secured it on with I believe it was an 18-inch or 24-inch lag bolt that went through the X and into the main frame. This is a photo of the frame after it had been sprayed. Very sturdy, very cool looking. Just again, to see the axe marks in there, knowing that over 100 some years ago, someone shaped and formed that timber into what it is today. And not only that, it could be part of a house construction, but after so many years, it can be like transformed into different things that could be utilized in people's homes today. So here's a photo of the finished frame. You can see that the centerpiece of that axe really just sets it off and finishes it nicely. On the top part of the X, I went back to the guys at North 40 Steel and came up with a design to not only stabilize the X, but also make it easier for the customers if they ever wanted to separate the tabletop from the X. And by doing so, I recessed that steel plate into the underside of the table using threaded inserts, and that's how the two attached. So you can see in this photo that I attached, I believe they were 4-inch carpeted coasters, just for ease of movement on the wood floor that they were going to be going to. So at this point, I bet you're wondering why you're seeing this photo. Well, let me tell you why. The table was done. The delivery arrangements had been made, and we were taking the tabletop and frame out of the shop. It was a sunny day, and the second that tabletop hit the sunlight, I could immediately see those 3 problem areas that were 10 times worse now in direct sunlight. So kind of in a state of shock, we continued to load up the table to deliver it. Halfway there, I just made the decision that I could not deliver this product to the customer. So I whipped a U-turn, I went back to the shop, and the decision was made to resurface the entire top. My brother was working at the time, and he looked me right in the eye and said, "I can't stand here while you're going to do this." So he took the rest of the day off, and I proceeded to take about an 1/8 inch off the entire top of the table with my slab flattening jig. So here we are, back to the tabletop. I got everything surfaced the way I wanted to. I restabilized all the knots, checks, and cracks, and got to the point of staining. I was a little nervous applying the first coat, and I was really worried about those problem areas resurfacing again after I applied the stain. But after I applied the first coat of stain, I didn't see them. I applied a second coat of stain, did not see them, so I knew I was good to go. After everything was stained, I then sprayed it. So here's a couple photos of the bench legs made out of the same beam material. Again, very cool material, and everything was sprayed, and we were getting really close to completion. I added the bench top and made sure everything was aligned properly, and also added the carpeted coasters on the bottom of the bench legs. My biggest concern with the bench was I did not want that bench to tip over. I did not want it to show any signs of distress if there was numerous people on the bench. So a decision was made to keep that bench as thick as we could. So it ended up about 4 inches thick. And then, I used that pretty steep angle on the legs just to make sure that bench would not tip over. All right, I hope you guys are enjoying the video. I'm gonna be showing you some finished photos of the project here in just a little bit. If you have any questions or comments, please shoot me a message. I just appreciate all the support. If you have any custom projects that you're looking forward in the future, if you want to team up, all my contact info is on my Facebook page, my website, and YouTube channel. I also have Instagram as well. Everything's under Third Day Woodworks, so check it out. Thank you.